On August 3rd of 2012, at the 95th Street Beach, a celebration was held honoring the first airmail flight in South Jersey that took place 100 years ago. Scores of interested citizens and dignitaries watched as Mayor Suzanne Walters extolled the adventurous spirit of the time. The U.S. Postal Service presented a plaque, and a biplane from Woodbine flew over the crowd. After the celebration at the beach, the crowd returned to the Stone Harbor Museum for refreshments, a tour, and a chance to get a special edition postcard commemorating the day. At the turn of the century, the U.S. Postal Service was king, and the king was interested in speed. These were serious men, and the railroad, the telegraph, and the telephone were snapping at their heels. But everyone in America used the post office, from Boy Scouts to businessmen, and every advantage must be utilized. In the spring of 1912, the post office commissioned a series of airmail trials to determine if airmail was feasible. This was no sure bet. First of all, there were no real airports in 1912, and the airplanes themselves were made of wood and fabric, with engines not much more powerful than a good-sized lawnmower today. Danger was a big part of the equation. In the year of the Postal Service tests, the U.S. Army lost 7 pilots in accidents. Plus, there were simple human errors involved. In one of the tests, the pilot never found the starting point, and in another, he dropped the mail pouch into the harbor. For the first New Jersey airmail flight, the Postal Service contracted a young Philadelphian, Marshall Errol Reed, who had bought his Wright 911B Flyer from the Wright brothers themselves for $5,000 and earned his flying license only that April. But that didn't keep the post office from hiring him, and there were excited announcements of the flight in the local and even the national papers. To get his plane to the shore, Reed towed it behind his new Mercedes automobile, down Market Street in Philadelphia, across the Camden Ferry, and down to Ocean City. On the day of the historic flight, after the lifeguards cleared the beach, he accepted a bag of mail from the Ocean City postmaster and took off, flying 20 miles over a beach that most of us would not recognize. There were few houses, long stretches of open dunes. He landed on the wide beach at Stone Harbor after a 36-minute flight. After a 20-minute return trip with 500 pieces of outgoing mail, he flew back to Stone Harbor and took 4 people up for flights, and even had time to send a dispatch to Postmaster General Hitchcock, inviting him to accompany him on the flight from Ocean City. An August 19th postcard from George Greskill reported that the airmail connection was open from August 3rd to the 13th, and that Reed had made 4 trips carrying a total of over 12,000 pieces of mail. There were many one-day airmail trials around the country, but this was the one that lasted the longest and seems to have been the most successful. Reed was a big hit in Stone Harbor, and he even took up the important Mrs. David Risley on a flight over the dunes and the ocean. She was elated by the experience. While these trips were fun, they were also a bit dangerous. On a later flight out of the Back Bay, Reed and a passenger ran into strong downdrafts and crashed onto a marsh island. Reed was thrown onto the island unhurt, but his passenger suffered a strained back. They were both rescued by boats from the Stone Harbor Yacht Club. Reed went on to serve with General Pershing in Mexico and was one of the first of the naval aviators in World War I. A Wright brothers biplane that he helped salvage is on display in the Franklin Institute. It is reported that Reed crashed 6 times in his flying career, but he didn't die until 1955. It was another 6 years after these trials before the post office got appropriations for the planes and the pilots to institute a full-time airmail service. Today, airmail is big business, with thousands of planes and millions of letters and packages carried. But it all grew out of the foresight of a few people and the courage of a small group of brave men.